Say very quickly, I've been teaching the poem for some 50 years, and it was only recently that I came upon that term, the Eliot Way, and Eliot himself coined it, trying to explain why it is that his mother, who was back in the States, could not decide whether or not to come and visit him in England. And he said the Eliot Way, I don't remember the exact words of the definition, but it's the idea, we think the Eliot Way, it's a path going somewhere. No, it's the opposite. He said the Eliot Way is such that when people, the Eliots stand on the ground falls into pieces, or something like that, falls out from underneath them. It's their complete inability to come to a decision. Wait a minute, decision and revisions, which a moment will reverse, and so on. And that is so much Prufrock's predicament. Eliot says, in talking about, this is in a letter where he's talking about the Eliot Way, he says that people who are afflicted with this disease, or whatever he calls it, want to do great things, but they are predestined failures. And realize, so Eliot, the great T.S. Eliot, who wrote the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, 4 quartets, and in between, Ash Wednesday, The Wasteland, all these monumental 20th century poems, was afflicted with this genetic disease that made him a predestined failure. And you realize that in effect, what happens in Prufrock is that those two polar opposites, great destination and predestined failure, great dreams and a predestined failure, come together in the poem. That what Eliot does, and this is kind of one of the basic points that I'm making in this book, not only about Eliot, but about all these other modernist writers like James Joyce and Samuel Beckett, is that he's projecting onto Prufrock. He's creating Prufrock as a kind of scapegoat. Here, Prufrock, you go and be a predestined failure. And he's able, through his artistry and the control that he exercises over the poem, to turn what is a predestined failure for Prufrock into a monumental achievement for himself. Think of it, maybe the simplest example, because everyone, even if they are not all that familiar with the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, they know Shakespeare's Hamlet. And so when Prufrock says towards the end, "I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be," you're thinking, hey, no kidding, you're nothing like Hamlet. You're not even a Polonius. But people will immediately recognize the literary reference. From there, you can point out not only that the name Hamlet appears at that point in the play, but the whole poem is in the form of a dramatic monologue. Let us go then, you and I. He's talking to himself, presumably. Who talks to himself? Very famously, Hamlet does. Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt. To be or not to be, that is the question. Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I, and any number of other 4 or 5, however many soliloquies in Hamlet, and Eliot basically is recycling the soliloquies from Hamlet. But modernist scholars know that Prufrock is quoting all over the place when he talks about rolling the universe into a ball, when he talks about Lazarus. The poem begins with a quotation from Dante. There are all kinds of references to Ecclesiastes, biblical. So it's a pastiche of quotations in many places. When you look at the quotation itself, it's from Canto 27 of the Inferno. It's Guido Montefeltro who's saying to Dante, if I thought that you were going to go back and tell people the horrible things that I did and that they don't know about, I wouldn't say a word to you. But then he says, but since I know that no one who has come down here into hell has ever returned to earth, as it were, I will speak to you without fear of infamy. So he's going to talk to Dante, but he doesn't want to talk to him. He didn't want to talk to him, but he will. So this idea of a kind of ambivalence about revealing yourself. Well, one possible application to the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock is that right from the very beginning, Eliot wants to say something to us, but he doesn't want us to understand what it is that he's saying. So he puts it in Italian. I'm saying this somewhat facetiously, but it makes a serious point. There are a number of serious points, and I'll continue by making this very serious point. What in God's name is Prufrock talking about in the poem? He talks, he opens his mouth, as it were, he speaks all of these words, and at the end, you say to yourself, well, what did he say? Hey, beats me. No one knows. There is just all this critical controversy, all of this, let's say, all of this indecisiveness among readers of the poem. There's no final answer. This idea that not only Eliot is writing a poem about this person who's very indecisive, so what? It's not going to be the great modernist poem, but he uses indecisiveness as a kind of aesthetic material. But you have the indecisiveness of Prufrock, which is really annoying. And you can, oh my God, I'm so happy that I'm not Prufrock. Or, oh my God, I am Prufrock. He's got me. He's really nailed me with his portrayal of Prufrock. But then on the other hand, the indecisiveness that we feel in reading the poem, and we could be frustrated about it if we want, in a very scientific way, if we want an absolute answer. But if we're English teachers, and the poem, I remember seeing a New Yorker cartoon once where the doctor was talking to a patient, and he says, I don't know what it is that you have, but it's a lifetime income for me. And you could say the same thing about Prufrock. English teachers don't know what it is, but it's a lifetime occupation for them. They can go on and on. I'll tell you, what I would do, and what I have done with my students, when I used to have students, is I would do Yeats's Sailing to Byzantium and the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, and just challenge or encourage my students or prospective listeners to this interview to read those two poems and to get with the idea in mind that they're basically about the same thing. It's death and rebirth is all it is, but done in such a different way. Yeats's poem is published, 14 years after the love song, and you feel Yeats is determined. He is not. Eliot is not going to show him the way by any means.